Brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Probably just in front, non-conformist drives, photo finish. They've hit it locked together again, and Probably will win it. Armalass over the top, it's Riddleby, that's Armalass lugs in but wins. Thunderstruck finishes hard, gets a neck in front and won the Toorak. He still leads by a length and 3/4 and Delphi's going to do it. Delphi wins.
Well, it was Brendan and Joe Lindsay's Cambridge stud colours flying high on the weekend, of course, as Probabeel and Carmelass saluted across the ditch. A very warm welcome back to Weigh-In. Isn't it awesome to be back with you for the 2021-2022 season? And a big thank you to everybody involved, the sponsors, and of course everyone behind the scenes to make this possible. As you might have noticed, things looking a little bit different for you with regards to Weigh-In. I'm based here in the Auckland studio, and Michael Guerin, my co-host, he's just up the road. He's at his house. Michael, very important we stick to the COVID protocols, but really good we're able to get the show off the ground. And what a weekend to kick things off with, of course, Group 1 success across the ditch.
Yeah, hi, and big hi to everybody watching. Oh, sorry we're a bit late. We were supposed to come back about 4 weeks ago, but like everybody, we're adapting to the new COVID situations. Welcome to my place. Doesn't always look like this. I don't usually spend Monday morning wearing a jacket and a shirt, but I tell you what, I was excited by the weekend. I think like everybody, New Zealand racing fans, got a real buzz out of seeing Probabeel. Maybe a shock, even though she was second favourite, to see her so good and so brave. And now, for her, the road heads to the Cox Plate, Emily, and that's probably the biggest statement out of the race. I think they were probably 70-30 going to the Empire Rose, more so than the Cox Plate, if Zaaki was able to beat her again as he did in the Underwood. But she was fantastic and brave, Emily. Zaaki, well, you're probably better placed than me to sum up what happened there. Do you think it was the firm track? Do you think it was the nature of the race? What did you make of Zaaki's performance before we get into the beauty of Probabeel?
I think it was probably a combination of things with Zaaki. I think he's a little bit vulnerable, isn't he, with regards to his tactics. We've seen him bowling along in front, and that sort of suits his style of racing. And as you said, the Caulfield track, very firm, and Probabeel just had those great stats at Caulfield. But isn't it great horse racing? It's no such thing as a certainty, and that just proved in the might and power on Saturday. Let's take a look back and relive that wonderful Group 1 win by Probabeel. Of course, it was her fourth Group 1 here at Caulfield over the 2,000 metres.
Lets down and takes no effort and is going to try and run away from Zaaki. So at the 450, Homesman lets down, led by 3/4 of a length to Zaaki, as the jockey on Homesman, McNeil's the first to go for the Persuader. To third, Probabeel, only 2 off the lead, and then Nonconformist. Zaaki's got a race here in the straight at the 300. Homesman just in front. Zaaki has to find because Probabeel's driven through a Nonconformist. Zaaki's really going to have to find at the 150. Probabeel's wayward, Nonconformist the threat, then Zaaki. Probabeel and Nonconformist. Probabeel just in front, Nonconformist drives, photo finish. Nonconformist or Probabeel, then Homesman or Zaaki, who was disappointing face value. They found a way to beat him, and last of the 5, no effort.
Well, I suppose, as we mentioned earlier, the greatest talking point out of the race was the fact that Zaaki was beaten. He was such a short-priced favourite, and obviously with the small field, you could see how afraid people were of racing him. But then, when he was well beaten, turning in for home, it was then down to the Kiwi mare Probabeel to step things up. It came right down to the wire, and she gets the nod on the line. And I loved Brett Preble's post-race comments. He was all out at the 100-metre mark, but she just kept on giving, and that's what an honest and brave mare she is. And Michael, as we come to you for your thoughts around the race as a whole, Probabeel's record, Group 1 wins at 1,400, 1,600, and now proven at the 2,000 metres as well. She's just been a fabulous mare, and so exciting for Brendan and Joe Lindsay to have a mare of this quality, and one day to be able to bring her back to the farm. And of course, she'll be the jewel in the crown, no doubt, there at Cambridge Stud.
Yeah, well, won't she be? And they've got such an incredible broodmare band being built there. We're going to see another one of those very shortly, even a younger one, Matamata, winning on Saturday. But with her now at 2,000 metres, we now know she can get a Cox Plate distance at the highest level. So that becomes the aim, and it's a big aim because it's become a very strong Cox Plate field. But she also showed something else we haven't seen before. We haven't seen her hard up against the rail very often in her career. She's tended to be a big swooping type of a mare, but she's got tactical speed. She's learning how to race even more so than in the past. It's tremendously exciting to see her in a Cox Plate field, which, as you look at it on your screen, is a question mark over Zaki. Animo is likely to go there, but not a certainty. There's a question mark over Very Elegant. She was beaten last time on a firm track. Incentivise heading to the Caulfield Cup this week. We're not sure if he's going to a Cox Plate. And Gold Trip, who's arrived out from Europe, has had a few little lameness issues. You look at that page, and a lot of these horses have the smallest of doubts over them. One who doesn't is Cool Sign Mav. He heads there this week, spoke to John Barry. He's going to need a rider. They were thinking maybe they could get Brett Preble if, in fact, Probabile didn't go. But when you look at that listing, she doesn't stand out as a horse who deserves to be favourite, but she stands out as a horse who's going into the race with probably less question marks over her. The one big question mark that could appear in the next 12 days would be rain. So both Jamie and Brendan confirming if it rains next week in Melbourne and it rains close to the race, then things get a little bit tricky. They don't want to race her on a wet track as they did last year in the Cox Plate and in the All-Star Mile, both at the Valley. So that could see a change of plan, maybe to the Empire Rose a week later. The one thing I would say, because there's futures betting on both, Emily, is they've indicated they won't go to both. If they go to the Cox Plate, no Empire Rose. If the Cox Plate becomes wet, then the Empire Rose comes back into focus. But I think it's going to be really exciting for New Zealanders to have both Probabile and the horse who's won the first two legs of the Triple Crown and Cool Sign Mav there. Elephant, you saw at the bottom of that market, Emily, he'll be changing tack and he won't be heading there after having no luck in the Toorak.
And of course, the other talking point, Michael, is the collective team effort. Obviously, Waikato Stud Stallion in Savabeel, and such a wonderful Waikato Stud family that they've nurtured over the years. David Ellis having purchased the horse, as well as Karma Lass on the day, Jamie Richards' training effort, and obviously Ashley Handley as well, based across the ditch, doing all of the hard work over there. A wonderful team effort and so many layers of New Zealand success, Michael.
Yeah, the success we're seeing at Caulfield, I think, comes at a really important time. The ready-to-run sales are on Monday and Tuesday this week. Well, not the sale, but the breeze-ups and then the sales next month. And once the hype started to come, not only around the Australian-bred horses, but the fact that these English horses were coming out here and dominating, it's really easy to get pushed to the back of the queue. And then all of a sudden you have, a Darcy Brahma come out and Karma Lass, we'll see shortly. Obviously a Savabeel, you have a shocking like I'm Thunderstruck. All these horses come out and put their hooves up and say, hey, don't forget us. Not only are we New Zealand horses, but we're actually cheaper than all those other horses. And I think it's a really timely reminder right in the middle of the carnival there that some of the best shopping is right here at home. As I said, particularly because the ready-to-run breeze-ups are on the next couple of days. I think one of the big winners out of the weekend was New Zealand Bloodstock.
Yeah, it certainly is a very good homegrown product we have here in New Zealand. Let's press on because we do have to take in a replay of Karma Lass, who of course was also successful for the Jamie Richards team. Was in a second upstate and was very, very effortless with this victory, again under Brett Preble.
From Never Again, Karma Lass, Iconoclasm losing ground from Galaxy Raider. In the straight, 300 to go. Buffalo River given its head, led by 2.5 Sosi Bon. Riddle Me That is running on, and then Karma Lass. It's Buffalo River, 200 metres to go. Riddle Me That and Karma Lass are finishing hard. They've got to Buffalo River. Karma Lass over the top with Riddle Me That. Karma Lass lugs in but wins. Karma Lass from Buffalo River and Riddle Me That. For fourth, a photo Sosi.
She was inclined to lay in up the straight, but that didn't stop her. A pretty effortless win there, Michael, for Karma Lass, who gets up to secure that victory. And again, another very, very valuable victory for Cambridge Stud.
Yeah, those Australian group victories are incredibly valuable, as you said, because when buyers come to the sales in 5 years or 10 years to buy a daughter or a son of Karma Lass from Cambridge Stud, yes, 1,000 guineas in New Zealand is great, but when you back that up with Australian form, it's incredibly valuable. Not sure I really saw this coming. Jamie Richards was on our radio show on Saturday morning and actually tipped her out each way, Karma Lass, but she hadn't shown much and hadn't been given much chance to show much because things had gone wrong for her quite a bit since she won that 1,000 guineas last year. But I think had this happened a couple of weeks earlier, Em, she might have even been in play because Jamie thinks she's a 1400 metre horse to head to the invitation in Sydney, but she's in Melbourne and it's a lot of going backwards and forwards to do that. And of course, they have Andre Villiers for that race. But I think had this happened earlier, she could have gone there. Jamie's toying with the idea of 1400, maybe going to 1600 with her, but he would like to find a nice 1400 metre race. But I think it puts a pretty good exclamation mark on the last year of her career. And Brendan and Joe also have Zooxarella, who's the favourite for the 1,000 guineas this week, also at Caulfield. So it could end up being a massive, massive week for their future broodmare band at Caulfield in the space of 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, exactly right. As we move on to I'm Thunderstruck, who of course was a Toorak Handicap winner, the Kiwi breds just kept on coming. We can look back at the Toorak Handicap victory. Of course, I'm Thunderstruck so unlucky in the Sarup at Clark and was able to turn it all around with the Group 1 success here for the New Zealand bred by Shocking.
Fox Tefane needs it out. Now I'm Thunderstruck's run up behind that wall. Elephant, it's outside. Then came Embolism. As they reached the 250, so you assume from Luna Fox. I'm Thunderstruck got out. Then Embolism. They're across the track. Tefane's bursting through at the 100. Tefane, I'm Thunderstruck, stride for stride. I'm Thunderstruck finishes hard, gets a neck in front and won the Toorak. I'm Thunderstruck from Tefane, Superstorm late. Quantum Mechanic in a photo for fourth with Embolism. Then Luna Fox.
Well, as I said, of course, so unlucky in the Sarup at Clark. Really a tragedy beaten, and I tell you what, Jai McNeil had to pierce through some pretty tight gaps to be able to get home in the Toorak as well. Lots of talking points out of the race around I'm Thunderstruck. Tefane, of course, filling that second spot in New Zealand bred, and also Elephant, maybe not quite running up to what we anticipated. But Michael, my favourite part of this was the story around the breeders of I'm Thunderstruck. Epona Parks, Tony Forlong and Jennifer Jones. They bought Prima Donna Girl, the dam, for just $2,400, sold out of a Te Aroha trial, and now look at him flying the flag on the big stage.
And even more exciting is where he might end up. He looks like a horse who could end up in a Doncaster next autumn. He just naturally a horse who's improving all the time. So many people in New Zealand winning out of this. You mentioned the breeders. Rich Hill Stud was Shocking. They've got a serious Group 1 horse to fly Shocking's flag over there in Australia. Total willing to forgive on the other Shocking. Elephant, he was 3 wide the trip, so I don't think too many concerns there. He's had a wonderful spring so far. With On Thunderstruck, they had plenty of options. Phil Cataldo, another guy who has tremendous respect in Australia. He found this horse for Terry Henderson at an OTI. So many New Zealanders, having a piece of this victory and yelling home for On Thunderstruck. Where he's heading next, there's obviously some very good mile racing over the carnival, but I spoke to Terry last night. He's pretty excited about him when you consider this is only really his second preparation. So really feel for John Thompson and the team at Rich Hill too. That must have been a really huge buzz for them, because when you buy a Shocking, if they win a derby or something, you think, oh, okay, well, maybe that was expected. But a big open mile, that's a totally different kettle of fish.
Yeah, second individual Group 1 winner for Shocking, Ritual Stud Sire, as Michael was alluding to. And I understand OTI Racing have also bought the full brother to I'm Thunderstruck and the half brother by Charm Spirit, so certainly going to be involved in the family for a while to come. We next move on to the Herbert Power, which of course featured one of the Kiwis in the Chosen One. The eventual winner was Delphi, but as we take in this replay, keep your eyes on the Chosen One at the back of the field, who just made a barnstorming finish and looks right on track for the Caulfield Cup.
From the Chosen One, then Parade, but Delphi left in front a long way from home, but clears out about 3 lengths in front of Mirage Dancer. Then Turidan, Hustler War, the Chosen One to the middle. Delphi at the 200 metres, led by 2 lengths Mirage Dancer. The Chosen One, Hustler War. Delphi Oliver takes a peek over the shoulder at the 100. He still leads by a length and 3/4, and Delphi's going to do it. Delphi wins by a length, the Chosen One, Hustler War, and Defibrillate through for 4th. Then came Mirage Dancer, Parade, Turidan.
He had a bad barrier, he had a big weight, but he was still able to close it off really nice and strongly there, the Chosen One. Of course, it's the same path, a tried and tested path that they took with him last season that resulted in him finishing 3rd in the Caulfield Cup. It took an English Derby winner and a 9-time Group 1 winner, and Very Elegant, to beat the Chosen One. Michael, the Caulfield Cup looks a lot more open this year, and with that weight drop, and if he can get a barrier, you'd have to think that the Chosen One was a very, very very live chance to be able to run a place, if not very strongly, in the Caulfield Cup next week.
Yeah, that was the question, the barrier. That barrier draw coming out on Wednesday. Spoke to Andrew Forsman at length last night. He said, we need one. We had one last year in the race. We draw wide, like 2 years ago in the Caulfield Cup. We go most of the way back to last. And that's really hard to win the Caulfield Cup from there. We draw handy, we're in play. Because he's come home there in 22.55 seconds for his last 400. That's about as fast as they go. That's absolutely flying. Drops from 59 in the Herbert Power to 54 in the Caulfield Cup. As we see in the market, Incentivise obviously dominates, and he's probably not going to be $1.90 on the day, but he'll be a dominant favourite. Delphi, the son of the mighty Galileo, was extremely good there, and he's also on a lightweight. Quite a strong field, I thought, when you look at it like this end, but not as strong as previous years because no Anthony Van Dykes and all those European-type horses we've seen coming out. They'll be here for the Melbourne Cup, but they're not here for the Caulfield Cup. Ocean Billy flew across on Friday and he joins the Chris Wallace stable, or the Melbourne version of the Chris Wallace stable. So he's left Bill Pomare and he will be in the Cup. And then we have Quick Thinker, who's qualified for the race, but they're going to make a decision either today, Monday, or tomorrow on him. They're going to look at the long-range forecast, Emily, and if they think it's going to be raining Friday, then Quick Thinker could go from Sydney down to Melbourne for the Caulfield Cup, but there's no guarantee he heads there. He could also stay in Sydney and race there as well. So 2 confirmed New Zealanders in the Caulfield Cup, 1 still in the offing, and we'll see that over the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, exciting stuff. And just a week to go, of course, until that Caulfield Cup. Let's press on because we want to look at the Caulfield Guineas, which is a pretty significant race when it comes to a stallion-making race. And this year's winner was Animo. It was a risk taking Animo down there off the back of the Golden Rose. A risk, of course, that paid off.
Towards the middle of those, running on now is Captivant, and here's Animo below the 200. Lightsaber, Captivant, Animo moves up boldly, though Artorius is out late, but it's too late. Animo and Captivant stride for stride. Animo the stronger. Animo won the Guineas from Captivant. Artorius photo fourth. Lightsaber or Hitotsu or...
He was a very dominant 2-year-old. He's then developed into a very, very dominant 3-year-old. And Michael just so unlucky in the Golden Rose. The way the race panned out, of course, on the day it was leader bias and he was unable to make up the ground to be able to get up and win. Turns things around here and gets a very valuable Caulfield Guineas victory.
Yeah, and a very fast Caulfield Guineas. They galloped 1:35 and change, and that meant the good horses came to the fore. All 3 of the horses, 1, 2, 3, were previous Group 1 winners. Animo, beautiful ride by Ollie, was 3 wide with cover. Artorius, you could see from the overhead shots at the start of the race, just walked out of the gates. And if he keeps that up, it's going to be a hard way to continue his career. He was just as good as Animo, but we can't afford to keep getting that far back. So question mark for everybody is whether Animo goes to the Cox Plate. Em, I'll put it to you, obviously a very light weight, but was that a good enough Caulfield Guineas win to win a Cox Plate, if that's the way they go, Team Cummings?
I'm just casting my mind back to Seamus Award when he got up and was able to win. Hey, you've got to be in. If you've got a fit, sound horse and you're qualified, then why not give it a go? I'd be all for running him in the Cox Plate. I think it's a pretty open event. And yeah, why not give it a try? You're in Melbourne, got all the facilities there. He's just off the back of a win. I guess it's just with regards to his preparation. Has he done too much? Was that his peak, or has he got one more run left in him? But I'm sure James Cummings and the Godolphin team will be able to make that assessment for themselves. It's not a race, but it was a very impressive trial as Entrevier counts down to the invitation. Here's a little look at her having a spin around Randwick. It took an Everest winner in Classique Legend to knock her off and was very, very impressive here, Entrevier.
House Eliza Beale, and then followed Kerwin's Lane. Marzu the leader, 175 to go from Forbidden Love. McAvoy starts to shake up the grey now. Classique Legend moved up, struck the front. Entrevier late. Classique Legend maybe a short half head to Entrevier. They've hit the line together.
She's a speed demon, and we've seen how good she can be. Of course, Michael, she's already racked up an Australian victory, and looking forward to seeing Entrevier step out in the invitation. It looks like a perfect race for her. James McDonald's been super confident about her ability, able to stack up against the best of them, and she finds a very, very suitable race, doesn't she?
When the invitation was announced, the new $2 million race for mares over 1,400 metres, that's 12 days away now. The day it was announced, Jamie Richards, I rang him and told him about it. He said, that sounds kind of ideal for Entrevier. And at the time, they had Probabile, Avantage could have been aimed at it. Everything in her prep more or less has gone perfectly to get her there. She was excellent winning fresh up at Kembla, really good the next start when the sectionals were against her. I think the one thing they would like is a little bit of rain in Sydney over the next 12 days, just to get her toe into the track. I think she's probably most potent with her toe into the track. A lot of the other good mares are either staying in Melbourne. Tafane's going to head to the big mile race, the Empire Rose there. Obviously, Probabile's going to the Cox Plate. So a lot of those good mares aren't going to be in that race. It's inch perfect for her. She would probably like a nice midfield posse type draw. And as I said, that rain there. But it's been a long time since we've had a New Zealand horse 3.5 to win a $2 million race. And the question mark now is whether James McDonald will be there. Will James be in Sydney for that day, or less likely able to get to Melbourne to ride Zaki in the Cox Plate, which is the same day? I think Tim Tiaga will be really happy to see him not able to travel to Melbourne. Just talking about Sydney on the weekend, Sort of State was pretty good. He took on the Roman Consul. He was about fifth there, but in a very hot field, of course. And Amaralina spoke to Jamie about her run. He's thinking she's now looking for 2,000 metres. So potentially Amaralina could head down to Melbourne, and maybe the Matriarch, the race that Magic won to beat Melody Bellin on the last day of the carnival, could be in play for her. And just talking about the carnival, Emily, really exciting news coming out of Melbourne this week. Not for us, but for them. There could be 10,000 people allowed to the last 2 days of the carnival in Melbourne, which must seem like a dream scenario for them, and a bit of a scramble to see who's allowed on the gates there at Flemington.
Yeah, it'll certainly add to the atmosphere if they can get those crowds on course. So fingers crossed they're able to get that up and cranking by the time the Melbourne Cup comes around. Obviously, we didn't have an opportunity to just show you the Spring Champion Stakes, the other Group 1 from Sydney. That was taken out by Profundo, a son of Deep Impact. He's a real movie star. If you get the opportunity to have a little look at that replay, I suggest you do. And also congrats must go to the connections of Mr. Brightside, a former New Zealand galloper who took out the Seymour Cup on Sunday. Well done to you as well. Let's get you off to a break, and on the back of that, we sink our teeth into the New Zealand action right here on Weigh In. Today's Weigh In is brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Well, as promised, let's get into our New Zealand action here on the second part of Weigh In. Of course, we had two domestic meetings in the form of Hawara and Matamata. We'll kick off with Hawara, where their feature, of course, was the Group 3 wind spell at Grange William Taranaki Breeders' Stakes over the 1,400 metres. Let's have a little look at Magic Encanto get up to victory, a 9-year-old mare recording her first stakes win.
Out by 4, Ray Stevens trying to chase it down now, coming quickly in on the inside, London Express, Magic Encanto, London Express, Ray Stevens in the middle, starting to finish pretty hard still, Magic Encanto from Ray Stevens over on the inside, starting to try and get there, wide out Mohaka, they hit it, Magic Encanto from either Ray Stevens or Mohaka, and then Bella Conde getting home.
Allowed to roll along a little bit more positively there under Mariana Hudson, who records her first stakes victory and also a first stakes win for Fred Pratt. And Michael still rides track work at age 63, an awesome result for them and a turnaround in form when it came to Magic Encanto.
What a great contrast after all the glamour and the big money of Caulfield. We see the grit and the not as big a money of Hawara. Well done to Mariana and to Fred. Not often you see 9-year-old mares winning black type races. She'll have the chance to do something similar at Rotorua potentially this Saturday. She's going to back up. But yeah, that was a feel-good victory for the horses who are at the top of the market. Bella Conte, lost no friends there, leading forward to the 1,000 guineas, because it's not often the 3-year-old fillies in spring beat the older mares. And Concert Hall was back. There's a Zabeel Classic winner from last year. They had to start somewhere with her. I don't think they expected her to handle the wet track. So she had a warm-up. She'll head to some races, hopefully coming up on better tracks soon for her. But good to see Concert Hall back.
The other feature on that card from Hawera was the South Taranaki Club Egmont Cup, and it was taken out by Trissetti in pretty impressive fashion. Under Faye Lizette's 4-kilo claim, Trissetti recorded a 4th straight victory.
Trissetti hit the road jacks, trying to fight back on the inside, and then no loitering. Trissetti hit the road jack, still a length away. She's keeping him going here. Faye Lizette on Trissetti. He's going to make it 4 straight, all right, and Trissetti racing away with the South Taranaki Club Egmont Cup. Second hit the road jack, no loitering. Suleiman, then Penelope Cruz, Nitro Ted William Wallace.
It was a nice dominant effort by this horse, who obviously handles the heavy conditions with ease. But Michael, you can't sort of turn your attention away from the 4 straight victories. Of course, 2 of them at open handicap level, and really progressing through the grades nicely.
Oh yeah, well played. Grant Nicholson, trainer here, has played this beautifully, used apprentices really well on this horse. This horse, some people might look at it and go, oh yeah, it's a wet track, it's harbour, does it really matter that much heading forward? This is a pretty smart horse. It's been dominant in its races. It's hit the lead often at the 600 and outstayed them. Out of a mare called Tin Goose, who ran 3rd in an Auckland Cup for Donna Logan. So you would think this horse has the potential to get to maybe 2 miles. Not sure whether it'll be just as good on a firmish track, but if it can cop 2 miles, all of a sudden Auckland Cups and New Zealand Cups and Wellington Cups come into play. So I think Trissetti might be slightly better than some people give it credit for. Interesting to see where Grant ends up taking him.
Yeah, interesting stuff there around Trissetti. We move on to Mata Mata, and we do have the Team Whelan's Mata Mata Cup as the feature on the card from the Waikato. Let's have a little look at this effort by Vernon Mee, who was very dominant, beating home frontman under a big weight.
Going after Crystallize, frontman caught upon, he's 2 lengths away, it's Vernon Mee the toppy. Vernon Mee went up to Crystallize, frontman can't reach them, further back Spring Delight, but under 60 kilos, what a brave win. Vernon Mee punched right out for Craig Grills, and in the Kevin Hickman colours, Vernon Mee will score. Vernon Mee won it from Crystallize and frontman. Spring Delight, Monvento, Le Sablier, he's the one.
Well, resumed well behind Communique, and in the second upstate does manage to take out the Mata Mata Cup, and did have a lovely economical run courtesy of Craig Grills, Michael, which certainly helped this horse to be able to get home in front.
Big win though, carrying 60 kgs. It's not an easy thing to do. Kevin Hickman's colours also won later in the day with the actress, and they've had a really good spring. Spoke to Stephen Marsh, this horse heading to Pukekohe. That's where it goes next in 3 weeks' time for an open mile. But we know it can operate on the wet, on the dry, from 1,600 up to 2,000. Has plenty of options over the summer. Frontman took a lot of money, and some would think disappointing, as you often do when the favourites get beaten, but spoke to Andrew Forsman. They're pretty keen to maybe get some blinkers on him next time. He's a stallion. They think maybe he was just being a bit floaty and he needs to concentrate a bit better. So that'll be maybe the next up improving factor for Frontman.
We move along to the Russell and Yvonne Green Memorial. Sweet Clementine was successful in this one. Richard Collett trained galloper who was able to take out the open handicap over 2,000 metres in a pretty tight finish.
The inside Timberlake from Barbara to Madison presents to the centre. She's starting to build the revs after Sweet Clementine, who shot away. Sweet Clementine 3 in front to Madison giving chase, and then Victor Vegas the inside Timberlake. Sweet Clementine to Madison, really starting to stride lane. Here's to Madison going after Sweet Clementine to Madison. I think Sweet Clementine, maybe Sweet Clementine to just beat to Madison. There'll be a photo third Victor.
Well, Sweet Clementine had to be brave with the closing run of 2 Madison, and Michael was certainly that, stuck the head out and really knuckled down to the job.
Yeah, it was brave, just kept on going. Richard Collett said, look, we might head to a Counties Cup type race with this horse. She's already got some black type, so she's been placed at 1,400 metres in a black type race. Maybe get some more for her future broodmare career. Advantaged by the inside ground there at Mata Mata. The 9 metres inside was actually new ground, so they were very happy with that, and she's done a good job. Just talking about Richard, his good horses, the super horses, Super Strike has had a slight setback, but he'll be okay for the summer, and Super Pursuit could turn up at the trials this week on Thursday. So Super Pursuit and Super Strike adding to Richard Collett's team. I get the funny feeling that he's in for a good summer after being quite quiet through the early part of the spring.
Yeah, certainly looks that way. We had an interesting 3-year-old race on that card from Mata Mata as well, and we can have a little look at Ziegfeld, who was pretty impressive in the Brendan and Joe Lindsay colours. A very tough effort, just keeps on winning with the unbeaten record, now 3 from 3.
Joined out wide by Mustang Valley and Ferink coming up between them, and then Magneto Danger Strikes dropped out, but now Mustang Valley given her head at the 200 went up to Ziegfeld, who's fighting on. Mustang Valley, Ziegfeld is trying to come back. Ziegfeld the inside, digging deep, finding Pleady Ziegfeld. She's a winner. Ziegfeld 3 from 3 to beat Mustang Valley. Third for rank, fourth was Magneto, and last Danger Strikes.
Well, I really thought Mustang Valley was just going to go straight past and win the race, Michael, and fair play to Ziegfeld, who dug deep, was clearly headed and just kept on fighting. All you can do is win, and she just keeps on doing that, the daughter of Teofilo.
Yeah, what a day for the colours. She's unbeaten in 3 now, and you're right, Mustang Valley loomed up to win, but her connections thought that maybe the leader had an easier run. Lance Noble said that Ziegfeld is going to head to the soliloquy, as does Mustang Valley. So these two go head-to-head again in the soliloquy in a couple of weeks, which is supposed to be at Ellerslie, but might end up being back at Mata Mata. And then, yes, they are both looking to head to the 1,000 guineas at Riccarton. So they're both in the market for that. They are intending on heading there. The big question is, where do we get there from? Do we go via Mata Mata or Ellerslie? Is there going to be racing at Ellerslie anytime soon? Here's the market for the 1,000 guineas. Now, Imperatrice is the big question mark horse, was the one-time favourite. She went to Taupo and had a gallop with a few members of the Richards team, the Tiaka and Richards team, on Sunday. She'll head to the Sarton or the Soliloquy, one or the other. Then they'll make a decision about her. Arc de Triomphe, as we know, is already in the South Island, as is There You Go and Synchronize. So very much a market with lots of moving parts. Not entirely sure that Imperatrice will be turning up there. Jamie Richards telling us this week that he thinks maybe 1,600 metres is right at the end of her range.
Yeah, being by Invincible, that might just be the case. We also take a look at the 2,000 guineas whilst we're at it. I certainly want to recap what the boys are up to with regards to that feature race coming from Riccarton. I Wish I Win, Michael, did have to be scratched due to the heavy conditions. There's a number of key contenders there, and the race certainly opens up. I know you got some good insight on Titoki for us.
Yeah, now Titoki has been under offer. Spoke to Katrina Alexander this morning. Has been under offer to overseas buyers. They're not sure where that goes, but this is really important if you're having a punt. They are not intending on going to Riccarton anyway. They don't think it's the ideal race for the horse. So even if it stays in New Zealand, Titoki, I wouldn't expect it to be turning up at Riccarton. I Wish I Win heads to the Sarton to get their Field of Gold, obviously, is already down there. And Mana Nui was under offer this week, but that deal fell through, and it will be heading to Riccarton, as will a few of the others there. A couple of the fillies in the market as well. So again, very open type of a market. Just talking about the weekend racing, Eilish McCool got a treble at Harbour, well done. Rode really superbly there, and good to see the Pope back. Robert Hannam back after 18 months on the sidelines, had a winner midweek and a winner on Saturday, and a lot of people in racing thrilled to see him back.
Yeah, and also a special shout out to Justin Evans as well, Michael, who of course we are used to hearing George Simon's dulcet tones coming from Mata Mata, but obviously with the change in alert levels, Justin came up from the South Island, and not an easy job when you don't know the horses, but he did a stellar job as well on his, as he calls it, Northern Tour.
It was great. It was great to see him up here. He's one of the guys who's come out of the COVID over the last 18 months is really accelerating his career. So good on you, Justin. He's doing a super job. And well done to all the people involved in trackside, including Scott Patton, who helped put this show together. It's not easy when people are working from home and people having to travel all over the place and can't travel to other places and calling codes they're not used to calling. So it's a thankless task, but for all the punters watching at home, we like to have a bet. We do thank everybody who's making it happen.
And we just want to have a look at one more market, Michael, before we move on. And that, of course, is the Livermore Classic. And that's what we're counting down to this weekend, isn't it? And interesting the way this race is going to take shape with so many moving parts. As you said, call sign Mav, obviously, on a path to the Cox Plate, not heading here to the Livermore.
Yep, so he is definitely not going. Spoke to John Barry. He is out of here. He's off to Australia, joins Danny O'Brien officially after the Cox Plate, but will be in John's name for the Cox Plate. Sauvignon Blanc was only okay at Te Rapa last time. Bowden is a horse who would seem to be suited by the conditions, and Prix de Feu was good in the Windsor Park. A lot of question marks here. One of the biggest question marks, and this is the biggest question mark over New Zealand racing at the moment, which jockeys are allowed to go. Can Cambridge jockeys travel to Hastings this week? How this whole thing works. The biggest problem for New Zealand racing right now, and we need to solve it, and Bernard Saunders and his team are on it, but it's not easy to solve. Getting jockeys declared essential workers, like truck drivers. Let them get in their car, go to the races, work at the races, drive straight home. They've been really good with the COVID restrictions so far, but we can't keep not having racing in Auckland, for example. We can't just pretend it doesn't exist because we can't get the jockeys there. That's number one priority for New Zealand racing right now, is to get jockeys declared essential workers. Bernard has spoken to Grant Robertson, the Minister for Racing and Deputy Prime Minister, about this. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's got to happen because we're only a month away from the big carnival at Riccarton, and this could change. We could have situations there where we couldn't have jockeys travelling from the north to the south, which would not be good. So, number one priority, and they're on it. Let's hope we hear some promising news this week.
Yeah, it's a moving beast, isn't it? And also a special shout out to all the stable staff at Matamata on Saturday who were taking care of horses that weren't their own, obviously with the Cambridge Matamata border. So not an easy job, work enough hours as it is. So well done to everyone putting in the extra hours just to make racing go ahead and make it all possible. We're going to get you off to a break here on Weigh In. And on the back of that, some exciting news from Paul Wilcox with regards to the new racing club formed as a part of Ellerslie. Today's Weigh-In is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Well, Paul Wilcox, great to have you as part of our first weigh-in for the new season, mate. It's been a trying time, a lot of uncertainty out there at Ellerslie. It must be tricky to run a racing club with no race meetings.
Absolutely, Michael, and it's just a shame that I can't be in there in the studio with you, but at the minute it's the new norm, and we must fight on. And like I was saying before, it's spring's in the air and the sun is shining, so we've just got to remain positive and do the best we can in trying circumstances.
Well, Paul, over the winter, Auckland Thoroughbred Racing was formed. Congratulations to you guys and to the team at Counties. We now have the Mega Club. Announced today, the first of the mega stakes increases. You've already tipped in $1 million a year, did Ellerslie. I hear that ATR will now be tipping in an extra $1.1 million, which means, Paul, a normal rating 65 race or a maiden or any race at your meetings is now going to be worth substantially more than the NZTR norm. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's the start of the commitment we made, particularly as we were going through the merger, Michael, and you were privy to a lot of those discussions that we had with our members and the various industry groups, and that commitment is that we wanted to increase stakes. We've got the goal of where we want to get the stakes to, but this is part of that commitment and announcing here on Weigh-In what ATR is all about, and tipping in over 2 million this coming season over the period of time that we've outlined is going to be something that's going to be received really well by the industry, I think.
Paul, some of the highlights of that, particularly for people who don't know maybe some of the gun horses, a normal rating 65 race, $45,000. It's going to sound like a dream to a lot of trainers, even if they don't think they can win them. The 74 is going to $45,000. That's $15,000 above the minimum NZTR requirement. Is that money front loaded from what you're expecting to make in the future, or is that money coming out of reserves now?
No, neither actually. Is what it is obviously during my time here and before me, Cameron George, we've obviously had this goal in mind for a long period of time. So we've got our investment fund to a level where we can actually start making these commitments. So it's not front loading anything. Our goal is to take it from where we are now and continue every year getting better and better and better. So this is the start of that journey, and then naturally as we get more funds coming in, we can start raising those investments from 2 million up to 4 million, 5 million, etc. So yeah, we're pretty excited. It's obviously not where we want to be It's not our end game, but it's that start of that commitment that we make, and hopefully the industry sees those and accepts them for what they are.
These new minimums, Paul, which we'll show on screen so people can get a better indication of them, when do they start, and are they for all races, not just Ellerslie, but of course the other Auckland Thoroughbred Racing Club in Pukekohe?
Absolutely, and you'll see when you pop up the table for people to look at, the non-black type races, the iconic Premier Feature and Industry. That's going to occur between 20th of November, so that's Counties Cup Day out at Pukekohe Park, and Saturday the 12th of March. So those are reflected there. The black types occur between 20th of November and the end of the season. And then you'll see also what we're doing on Karaka Million Night, which is a very special meeting for us and New Zealand Bloodstock. We're increasing those undercard races outside of the two $1 million races as well. And then the good thing is that the maidens that are run at Pukekohe Park mainly from starting on that Counties Cup Day right through to the end of the season.
Okay, Paul. So we're targeting the major iconic race meetings over the summer. And we basically saying to people, A, this is where you want to be racing, but also B, we respect the fact that this is when the best horses are racing. So that's when we're going to put the most money into stakes.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. We're all about rewarding success here as well, Michael. So you don't want to reward horses just for turning up. You've got to have that money's going to the ones that are winning, right? And that's also reflected in what the jockeys and the trainers will get as well. But most importantly, it's the money that will be going back into the owners' pockets. You would have heard me say before, I want to stop people, owners particularly, saying to trainers, is my horse good enough to go to Australia? I want them to be saying, and I'll know when we've achieved, to say, is my horse good enough to go to Ellerslie or naturally now Pukekohe Park as well? So that's my goal, is to get those people changing. Naturally, your proper horses is always going to try itself against, as we see at the minute over in Australia, but hopefully this is the changing of the tide, a way to stop some of those horses that get sold offshore and maybe raced here and naturally under the ATR umbrella.
Paul, what's the projections? What are we hoping for in 3 or 4 years' time? These grade races, the 65s, the 74s, what are we hoping they are for at summer at Ellerslie and to a lesser degree, I suppose, Counties Cup Day out of Pukekohe?
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. But I'm not going to sit here and put a dollar on it right now because I'll get hung. But
come on.
all I'll say is in 3 years' time, I hope we're racing back here at Ellerslie after a successful track installation and people are not hating me and we don't have issues with the track. So that's my short-term goal, is to enjoy this increase as we do now. Shut down after Cup Week next year, March 2022, and then return sort of later 2023, all things going well, and hopefully no COVID enforced stoppages that we can get back to racing. That's my first goal, and then naturally we'll start making those increases year on year.
You mentioned the changes to the track, one of the biggest ones, of course. Sadly, we didn't get a chance to officially farewell the hill with a final Great Northern. Where does the tender process for the hill land stand at the moment?
Yep. So one good thing about being in an enforced lockdown is we went through a tender process and currently working with a preferred bidder to work through the finer details. So as soon as we can come out and announce who that is and who's been successful, we will. And but going through a very rigorous process at the minute to make sure it's all signed, sealed, and delivered.
Paul,
but agreed, I must say, from a club's point of view, probably none so more than us how upset we were that we couldn't run the Great Northern Steeple and Hurdle here, particularly last time over the hill. But we're also looking at ways we can remember that the Great Northern Steeplechase, and once we're out of these lockdowns and that, let's hope that we can make an announcement to do something then.
Any idea on a figure, Paul? I know you know it. Are you going to tell us? Is it a figure north of $100 million we're talking about?
You're a very good journalist, Michael. But look, once we're in a position to announce, we'll announce, and obviously the industry will be happy as well.
I'd have a go. What about COVID? Because
it's a pity Emily's not here beside you.
She could calm you down. Alexandra Park's racing, because they have enough horse people in the region to do so. Ellerslie cannot. How much longer can this continue, Paul? We have a mega meeting coming up potentially on Melbourne Cup Day, but the problem is getting jockeys here for it. What can you do? What are you trying to do? What can NZTR do to make this go ahead? Because, Paul, I think a lot of people are getting nervous about Melbourne Cup Day and about even further into the summer, Boxing Day.
I'd say probably I'm at the top of the list of being nervous, Michael. Yeah, look, at the minute it's a day-by-day proposition. So you know better than anyone, and the people listening to this, we've lost a lot of races already. So we're just trying to get a handle on where we are and what we're allowed to do. The biggest issue is naturally all the jockeys, or the majority of the jockeys, senior jockeys especially, reside outside of the southern boundary that's been imposed on us. So look, let's work a way of how we can get those jockeys into Auckland, because the horses can travel freely. I know that puts a bit of an issue on having those horses arrive if then the strappers and trainers can't be here. So there's quite a large moving part that we're trying to work with. But we're hopeful that we can get Melbourne Cup underway, because it signals the start of our racing for summer, and I don't even want to think about Boxing Day. To be fair, I know it's a very selfish way of thinking, but by God, I'd just be happy for the race to be behind closed doors, at least have horses here and trainers and owners and jockeys for their respective races.
Wilco, for people who want to know more about these stakes announcements, because it's a lot of information to take on board very quickly, is the website the place to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have this all on the website, and naturally we'll put something out in the media as well, so that'll have all the information that people need to know. But absolutely, website ellerslie.co.nz, Pukekohe Park as well, and on there will have everything they need to know, and they can start working out how they're going to spend this extra cash.
Mate, congratulations to the new Auckland Thoroughbred Racing Mega Club on these huge stake increases. Keep fighting the good fight, Wilco. We're hoping to see you Melbourne Cup Day, or at least before Christmas. So hoping for some good news out of Ellerslie for us Auckland racing fans.
Likewise, thanks, Michael, and good to have Wayne back on the screens as well.
Paul Wilcox, always so open with his time. Great for us to get all that information and be able to share it with you. Michael, some really important and significant changes, a lot of it obviously hinging on COVID with regards to the upcoming next couple of months.
Yeah, well, they promised the stakes increases were going to come with the money they're getting from the Hill. And as you heard there, the Hill sale is well advanced. But this is before all that. That's what I was asking about, the front loading. I thought this might be some money they were thinking we're going to get it, so let's spend it now. But this is what's already revenue coming into them from their investment fund. And that's why it's so crucial to have a huge investment fund. I think for most people, the 10% rise to the Group 1s and the listed races and the Group 2s and 3s isn't going to bother them too much, because they're not going to have horses good enough to win them. But once you start talking rating 65s on Saturdays going to 45,000, Emily, that's a lot of money. That's real money for horses who are just out of maiden grade. The MAAT races going to 45,000, that's getting you edging that closer. I know it's a long way away, but to Sydney and Melbourne stakes. And if we put the money in from the Hill, because this is for this season, but then let's not forget Ellerslie shuts down for at least 18 months. So we've got sort of 2 years that percolate through the system. I'm hopeful that by 2024, we might have rating 65s and rating 74s, horses that people watching the show, your horse can race in, normal horses can race in, for $80,000 or something like that, Em. So it's real progress, it's tangible progress, and lots of people have worked really hard behind the scenes to make it happen. It is sad to see the Hill go. I would have loved to have gone there for the last day for the Great Northern Steeples, but the money sounds very, very big. So it's a pretty exciting time, Emily. This is getting to the most significant change I think we've seen since this restructuring period in New Zealand racing.
Yeah, it certainly is exciting stuff. And Michael, of course, we are in day one of the breeze ups for the Ready to Run sales. That's our next focus when it comes to, I guess, an international industry perspective.
Yeah, really exciting catalogue actually for the breeze ups. They've got like a Frankel, and they've got a whole bunch of Australian stallions and lots of the really good New Zealand stallions. So they're at Te Rapa, being run under race meeting conditions, so it's obviously closed, Monday and Tuesday. All that information will be on nzb.co.nz, so New Zealand Bloodstock's website. They're going to have parade ring footage so you can look at the horses, and then obviously their gallops in the last 200 metres of time. So good luck to all the vendors involved there and all the pin hookers and everybody having a go. And then, of course, the sales next month and the online bidding platform there will be huge because most of the people from overseas can't come in. They are still hoping at this stage, talking to New Zealand Bloodstock, that they can have people on the sales ground. So they're hoping they'll get New Zealanders there. But one thing we do have in this country are some fantastic agents. And the agents have been massive, at Karaka for the last two sales, the main sale back in January and the Ready to Run this time last year. So if anybody's watching this overseas or you're watching around other parts of the country and you may not be able to get to the sale, the agents have been really good about helping people, even new clients, at discounted rates to look at these type of horses. So important part of the sales process coming up the next 2 days at Te Rapa.
So tried and tested product as well, because obviously we did have to run the yearling sales this way and the breeze ups last year. So fingers crossed that can all go off without a hitch. A huge weekend coming your way, and we'll be here on Weigh-In to review all of that. We count down to the Everest, the Caulfield Cup, and also on domestic shores. Of course, we've got the Livermore Classic at day 3 of the Hawke's Bay Carnival. Michael, it's been wonderful to have your company with me through the show. Great to be back on Weigh-In, and we'll be back next week on Monday at the normal time. Look forward to it then.